Hi, and welcome. Welcome to Voyzu. My name is Chris Lennon, and I am the inventor, the creator of Voyzu. And this is an exciting day um, because it's the launch of Voyzu, a passion project of mine. And over the next 20 minutes, I'm going to explain what it is, where it's at, what it isn't. And I will be giving a look at the product itself, it's open source, so the software itself, but also want to sort of pull back a little bit, just take a look at the vision, where this could go. So, yeah, let's take a look at the agenda. We're going to have a look at why, like that would be the first question, really. Why, why do this? Have a bit of a look at the vision, talk about AI. Kind of hard not to talk about AI when it comes to software, platforms, framework. Then take a look at what's in the box from a platform point of view. And then I won't have time really to do more than just touch on the core package, if you like, which adds that sort of functionality, finance and organization and such forth. And yes, spoiler alert, you can email me. So why a framework? So on a personal level, it was about 9 years ago. And I was doing a bungee, I remember, because it's the only bungee I've ever done, and it was for my birthday. And it was down in Queenstown, New Zealand, which is where I live, if the accent hasn't fully given it away. And I just thought, gosh, it would be cool to do a framework. And that's really where my passion for software architecture kind of was first, I don't know if you'd say birthed, but yeah, where I first decided to sort of go out and do something. And it's been a part-time endeavor and a passion project, really. Beyond that, imagine if we had a community-driven, open source, simple, flexible ERP system. And this was achieved through developer autonomy and accountability. So this isn't negating the other open source products that are out there in the CRM, the business ERP space, but there's a distinct vision here. And I think, we can make a difference. And the question I'm posing is, would a simple, flexible, and comprehensive open source ERP system be valuable to you or your organization? Would it be worth you investing some time to take a look at it, to maybe develop a package, give it a go? And that's not a question you can answer now, but I'm hoping to give some information that will help you answer that question. Alrighty, let's take a look at the vision. We'll pull out a little bit, just pull out a little bit here. So software applications, by which I mean all the software applications that are out there, which is a lot, obviously. Stripe and Zapier and, the Microsoft Office suite, of course, there's literally billions. And there will always be software applications, despite what companies like Zoho, companies like Odoo are telling you, that this can be a one app to rule them all sort of a thing. That it's just not realistic. There will always be niche products. There will always be unique business needs, and this kind of one app to do everything is good for marketing, but it's not realistic. So this isn't saying anything other than software applications will always be there. Voyzu is not an attempt to be this one size fits all everything software, just a good solid ERP foundation, doing the basics and doing them well. And Voyzu has a rapid application development platform, so it is a platform on which you can write and build packages. Over time, I'm hoping community packages will spring up. There is a core ERP, so at the moment there's a finance module, so not a fully featured ERP by any means, but there is a pretty grunty finance module, and then you can write your own packages. So where you get that sort of 10%, you get the 90%, but not the 10%, you can really, author something into that 10%. And I'll demonstrate, I guess, the start of that. All right, let's have a look at AI. So, gosh, there's a lot written about AI. There's so much there. My position, AI writes extremely good code. It's accurate, it's knowledgeable, it's informed, and it doesn't get sick or get attitude or, it's consistent. I've used Claude, I've used Codex, which is what I'm currently using, other platforms, other models. I think they're all, to me, at a reasonable parity, my opinion anyway. So I've used it extensively in creating this Voyzu platform. I haven't outsourced the architecture, so I've kept control of the architecture, and I've kept control of the patterns. So as I mentioned at the start, 9 years into a framework and playing around with software architecture, you don't just throw that all away because ChatGPT says, this is the best way. And so yeah, that's how I've used it. From your point of view, from the point of view of someone watching this, do you even need a platform or a framework now? Maybe AI is the platform, and you have software like Next.js, the equivalents in other languages, and AI. Is that the platform? It can be. My view, though, is that there's benefit in having patterns, and there's benefit in having documented patterns, and there's even more benefit in having patterns that are documented and implemented with real tangible examples. So if we just go to voyzu.org, voyzu.com will do the same job. This is the main Voyzu site. It's the documentation, and you can see here that there are guides to the platform, and there's a bunch of patterns, documentation, dependency management, and these are really hard-won patterns. These are in the trenches developing a highly complex financial engine. This isn't theory, authentication. So these are patterns you can build on, and these are patterns you can lean on. All right, so in terms of what's in the box, so there's a Voyzu platform into which you plug packages. So the platform gives you that rapid application development, the package management, routing, authentication, audit. There's a generic React library. There's a library for generating an API guide, completely both of those two things completely written from scratch. There's documentation like we've seen, and there are patterns. So let's take a look. So I'm here in the Voyzu platform, and I've basically installed all the modules, including the core modules, organization and finance. So this is not a top menu that from a user's point of view would see. It would be confusing. But the top menu is pluggable. So these are just packages I've installed, and their menu shows. Ice creams, if you're wondering, is a best practice module so that we can have something as a reference. These are the patterns in use. It's an ice cream management module. Various ice cream flavors, etc. It's not intended, obviously, to manage ice creams in the real world, but it's best practice. The ugly package I'll get onto. So if we have a look at the settings and we go to installed packages, I've got my display sort of zoomed in a little bit for the demo. In actual fact, the you wouldn't probably have it this sort of zoomed up on a modern computer. Let's move myself over here. So these are the various packages here. You see some pre-installed, and the core package here, which is your organization and finance, ice creams in the ugly package, and you can control visibility here. So for example, if I didn't want to show this on the top navigation, I save this, and there we see ice creams disappear. So install is managed at the command line. So there's a variety. Oops, I need to go back again. There's a variety of commands. There's a variety of commands here. Let me find them here. So Voyzu initialize, installing a package. So packages are installed from GitHub. So you run Voyzu install. So it's a GitHub distribution system to install packages. So that's done at the command line. But package visibility is done here. So I'm going to touch a little bit, just briefly. Users, authentication, that's reasonably standard. There is a UI reference. These are React, so these are handwritten from scratch, if you like. And it's the various controls that are used in the core modules, radios and searchable selects, etc. So you've got full documentation there, this sort of stuff with all the code. And these obviously give a consistent look and feel. And it's dependency free. There's not, here's the paid version and we're using this version. It's simply, this is React. And that's one of the design principles, is really simplicity. It's a simple stack, TypeScript, Next.js, Postgres for the database. So it's deliberately free of this kind of, network of dependencies, etc. Puppeteer does the PDF. It's about as kind of complex as it gets, really. And the API reference is dynamically generated API documentation. So we've taken an API first approach. Even package management, being able to set the home page in package management, get the list of packages, everything's there as API documentation. Examples. And this again is handwritten. This is not Swagger embedded in. This is simply React, TypeScript. And packages you write will also appear here. And you get that out of the box. So you get that API generation and the pathways, whatever pathways you choose to install, which is probably a good segue into the whole philosophy of the Voyzu platform, in that there's a balance. If you're developing in a really big system like a Salesforce, Microsoft Central, you are very constrained. Here are the paradigms, here's what you can do, and the rest of it you can't do. So you're really highly constrained and highly limited. And that's by design. These are big packages, they're complex, and by design you can really only kind of do stuff the platform can do anyway in functionality and look and feel. The other end of the extreme would be, again, the no framework at all. Just do it yourself, you're on your own sort of a thing. So where is that balance? So I've tried to strike the balance between developer freedom and giving a few rails, so you're not just on your own, or what's the point of a platform? But very much, I guess, skewed towards developer freedom. So you're essentially getting a space here. You're getting the ability to put stuff on the top menu, and you're getting stuff like authentication, centralized users, etc. And then the rest is really up to you. And the ugly package is a good demonstration of that. It's a deliberately ugly package. I personally wouldn't do a bright yellow horizontal menu right under a normal menu. It's confusing, but you can. So here's the frame, if you like, the surface that you get, and really whatever you want to return into the platform, just return it. So there's no design or shared design or these UI stuff, buttons, none of that. It completely sort of ignores that. But it's a valid package, so it conforms to the bare minimum. So it's got a package.json, it's got the package.ts, it got some modules. So technically it can plug in, but behind the scenes, it does whatever it wants. Dependencies. So this is generating a random cat name, Angel. So what does that mean? Well, in this package.json, the cat names dependency has been installed. So essentially, whatever npm dependencies you want to bring in, you can. There are system dependencies, things like React, things like Next.js, and that's documented. So you get those without needing to install them because the platform has them. But yeah, absolutely, bring whatever dependencies you want to, and hopefully you're getting the idea. This is a surface. You plug into it, and you play by its rules in terms of it's got a contract. You adhere to the contract, but within that, you do your own thing. And the final thing here is under raw request and response, you are returning here React. So this here is a React render. It breaks it into these 4 pages, and these are URLs. They're not just React sort of subcomponents. And yeah, you return React. You get the parameters. So for example, ID or whatever. And at the API level, you're pretty much as close to the HTTP sort of boundary as you can be. So this is an actual API, just localhost 3000 raw request response. I'm going to send it, and you can see here in your code you'll have access to the request, including cookies, whatever. This is HTTP, and you return a next response. So you could return a 200 or a redirect. I believe there's an HTTP code for I'm a teapot. Can't remember what it is, but I'll put it maybe in the YouTube comments. So again, receive the raw request, do your logic, send a response. Use the Voyzu patterns or don't. Now, if you're going to publish into the community, getting back to this sort of, getting back into the vision, let's say it's probably a good illustration here. So this is a package. We've just looked at one, the ugly package. If you're writing your own package, you don't have to conform to the patterns, but I would say they're hard-won patterns. So for want of anything else, to save time, I would, but I wrote them, so I would say that. But anyway, you're getting the idea. If you're going to promote into the community, or you want it listed on voyzu.org or something, you're going to need to conform to the patterns, because you can't have everybody just doing their own thing. There's got to be a consistency. But you don't have to do that. Obviously, it's open source software. Write your own package. Happy days. Okay, that takes us to the core package. So I didn't just want to write a framework and then do things with ice creams and ugly modules, and I wanted to deliver some value. Here is some tangible value. This isn't just a platform. Here's something you plug into the platform. Also, a financial ledger. It's got some complexity, and it really is nothing like taking you out of that theory zone into the real zone in terms of developing and sharpening up patterns than something complex and real. Like I say, this is really the subject for a documentation. So there is full documentation on Voyzu Core. So things like what is a financial ledger, the posting model, control accounts, tax. We all love tax, as well as more granular help. So that is there. And from time to time, I will do videos on Voyzu Core. I've got a big backlog of videos to get done. So yeah, definitely subscribe. Absolutely. But just as a first look, and again, this is a reasonably sort of zoomed up view, a little bit artificial. But you can see here that the things you would expect, general ledger accounts, etc. The model is based on financial document types. So it's a consistent model with a bunch of, I think there's 24 odd financial document types. AP bill. Let's go to accounts receivable, invoice. But what happens when you issue an invoice in error? What happens if you issue an invoice and the customer part pays it and then they dispute it? Is that a withdrawal or a cancellation? So all of those use cases, or I'm not going to say all in the world of finance, but a good strata of those use cases have been worked through, and from an accounting point of view, you can actually see the model here. We're going to debit accounts receivable, we're going to credit revenue and tax output, and that's going to map to this formula here and right down to the general ledger code level. So it's a fully featured finance module. It's not an accounting system. So for example, you're not going to see the ability to issue an invoice to a customer, but you are going to be able to receive that invoice through the API and process it. So you have here organizations, you're operating at that organization level. Now you come into the companies, and we can go into the accounts receivable ledger and see the various ledgers here. And to my example of an invoice, you will see the invoice here, a little bit truncated at this sort of screen resolution, but we'll go with it. You can generate a PDF if you wish of that invoice, but that is an invoice that's been received through the API, and it's working at that, I guess, financial level. So a module yet to be written would be the invoicing module. Obviously the engine is there. So that's probably the only time, about as much time as I will have for this, but it's, you know, it's there. So that really brings me to the end. I'm not so cool for school, so absolutely email me if the concept interests you, or you may have an idea for a package. So as a roadmap point of view, I'll be extending out the core ERP. That'll be the first thing, and along with that will come improvements in the framework and the platform. Look, it is new, like any new software. We're at 0.1. You saw a little bit there with the invoice there, a little bit truncated at a weird screen resolution. You know, I'll take a look at that. If there are issues, log them on GitHub, and we'll improve the software incrementally. That's it from me. Do subscribe to the channel, pop me an email if you're interested, and happy coding.